Hey everyone, Scott Tobin here, and welcome to Composers Play, where myself and my guests will be playing through some classic video games and chatting about all things music and audio. So, before we begin, this is a very unique first episode, as I'm going to be playing co-op with Heretics' original music composer and sound designer, Kevin Schilder. Kevin, thank you so much for being here.
Hey Scott, thanks for having me.
This is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
So, I'm playing as the yellow, Corvus is actually his name, I think it's from Heretic II, and you're playing, Kevin is playing as the green Corvus, so yeah. So
I guess we get the same name, right?
I think so, yeah.
We're all Corvus here.
Yeah. So, I think before we get talking about Heretic, how did you get into doing sound and music for video games?
It's a long story, actually. It wasn't something I planned back then, I guess, at the time, because you really didn't. There weren't like schools to go to, learn how to do video game music or anything like that. So, I have a long background in training in music. Learned to play saxophone back when I was younger.
Cool.
And I was a teacher for a while, taught music, things like that. But the way I really got into the computer, the video game end of it was kind of a connection of the music I was doing, the video games I was starting to play, and just gaming in general. And then knowing the founders of Raven Software, Brian and Steve Raffel, because it kind of started from just playing some Dungeons and Dragons, believe it or not, and and then the computer games that came out that were like it, like Dungeon Master on the Amiga.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
I remember.
And then as they were working on making their first game idea, Black Crypt, they're like, well, would you want to try and do some music for this? You're a music guy. I'm like, sure. I have no idea how to do that, but yeah. And so that's kind of how I got into it in the first place, right there.
Wow. So let's talk about one of the first games you did, Black Crypt.
Yeah, so that was a game for the Amiga, Commodore Amiga, and it was after playing Dungeons and Dragons together, with Brian and Steve, and then playing the Dungeon Master game on there. They were like, well, we could make something like this ourselves, maybe, and so they were working on that project. And then when the time came to try and do a little music, that's where I got the invitation to try and do that. So
right, okay.
Behind you.
It's actually, do you know what? It's a lot more difficult playing and talking than doing an interview.
Yeah, I know it is, because it's so distracting to. I don't want to die or anything.
Yeah. It's not as easy as it looks, folks. So, how did you come up with some of the sound effects for the monsters?
Well, let's see. I was thinking about that before I came in here, because this imp guy here, actually him, I'm pretty sure, I think the voice was done by one of our guys at work there. I think Michael Raymond Judy did that voice for me.
No way.
He'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, but he's credited as a game designer in here for Heretic, but he had a good voice for that kind of thing, and I just played around with that, if I'm remembering correctly. But with sound effects, a lot of the creatures come from just animals and things like that. Those are a good resource for that.
Okay.
And then things like the sorcerers and all those guys were my voices. Well, making sound effects for games was something else. I had no idea when I first started how I was supposed to do that, because I kind of came in and I knew I was going to work on music, and then they're like, well, you're going to do some sound effects in that as well too. So. And I really didn't know exactly how I was supposed to go about that. So,
right.
But there was a company called Sound Ideas, and they made this really good sound effect library called the General. So that was one of the first things kind of purchased, with about 100 CDs of sound effects and things like that.
Oh, okay. So it was your go-to kind of sound library for some things.
Was, yeah. And there was, to begin with, I just kind of sat down and listened to sound effects. I just ran through, all those CDs, and then just to listen and see what was on them. Doing sound effects is like, it's sort of hearing. I think the way I describe it is you got to hear an ordinary sound and then hear the potential for something else in it, because that's mostly where the good sound effects come from. You take something that isn't, you know, just because it says it's a bear doesn't mean it's going to turn out to be a bear, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, it's sound design's a funny one because you know, if you're looking for a specific sound, like let's say if you wanted like a shield hitting a metal, you know, container, if you did that in real life, it wouldn't be the right sound. You know, you'd have to find a different sound to get that sound.
Oh, I know that was one of the things I learned kind of early on. Is like, I'd be looking for a sound and I'd just look up the sound effect by name, like, you know, here's a door or whatever, and the real thing was always like so much less than you really wanted to have in a game like this, especially. So
that's right.
So that's why the doors aren't just like, you know, a household door or something like that, but you take a door, you take an explosion, a metallic crash, or like stone, you know, huge stone doors or stuff like that.
Yeah, and layer them maybe to get a different kind of a sound.
Mm-hmm. There's just not a real like exact science to sound effect design, I don't think, at least for me. It's a lot of the times it's just thinking in your head, okay, here's what I want it to sound like. What things in the real world might actually sound like that if I mess around with them a lot?
Sure.
So that kind of got me going. Sometimes I just actually put CDs in and just listen to sounds and just go, well, you know, I'll just copy that sound down and play around with it and see what it turns into.
Yeah. It's a whole different area, like music and sound, even though they go so well together, just they're totally different things, and
right.
to get them right, it's tricky.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then sometimes, you know, it helps if like you know, here's the RAM gun here, but sometimes I had to like at least work on sounds before the thing was actually finished, and just so you had a general description of what it was going to be. So
right. So let's talk about the first tune here in Heretics, this E1M1 M1, the song. It's like when I first heard it, when I first played the game, I was like, that has to be a real guitar. You know, I was young, I was about 10 or so, but I was like, is that a real guitar? I don't know what you did, but you sequenced it so well. It just has that muted kind of guitar riff sound. It's, I don't know how you did it. Did you play it in? Did you click it in? It's
Well, thank you, first of all. You know, when I sat down with the MIDI instruments and I heard the guitar, and I'd heard it in Doom and other things as well, and I'd start playing with it, and if you just use it like a, you know, just the sample it doesn't sound much like a guitar. But
that's right.
Having listened to them and played them myself, I thought, well, what's missing here? I need to change the volume more. Do things with some more expression and subtlety in it. So I was trying to hear it like a real electric guitar player should be, and then I forced the MIDI to do that. And it took a little time to figure out how MIDI worked and what I could do to make that happen. So it was like I didn't play it in. I used the keyboard, or I drew it in. Sometimes I just drew the notes in, and then a lot of it is like playing around with the length of the notes, because you can hear, I could just picture somebody's just playing that on there, and the amount of movement of their hands, so that some were extremely short sounds and some were a little longer. Because what I heard from, I guess, a lot of other MIDI music was people just used the MIDI samples and just played them as they were, and didn't try to like really play with them to get them to sound like the real instruments that they were modeled after. So that was kind of my goal all the time.
It's the same now with when you're using sample libraries. There's certain tricks you can do to make it sound even more realistic. Lengthening it, shortening it, changing the attack and that. But it's a fun one.
I agree, because it's just a sample, right? So it can only do, it's a sample. It's not the whole thing. It's really on you as a composer to know what the instrument's supposed to work like, and then use that and use other controls, especially in MIDI, to translate that so it sounds like a real player playing this instrument.
Sure.
That's what I was always trying to go for, and it's probably based on what I had heard, what I listened to, or the kind of training I had had in school for things like composition and orchestration.
Before we started the game, we talked about this tritone that's really prominent in this tune. The why the decision to use the old tritone?
It sounds cool.
Yes, yes, sure.
Yeah, it does, and it fits the mood. And part of it was just I played around with things, and I thought, well, what sounds dark? What sounds, dissonant and kind of just angry, or just. In fact, the song was originally called Dark. That's what I named it.
Okay.
But the tritone, like I was telling you, it was like a big no-no in composition. Normally, in classical composition, certain styles, they just wouldn't let you do that, and you got like downgraded if you used it.
Yeah.
And so once I was the composer, I said, well, I'll use whatever I want. No one's gonna downgrade me for this or other things. So, but most of the time, my ears were the things that guided me, and so I had probably a feeling, an idea, like a blank spot, what I thought this was going to sound like and how it should feel, and then when I'd find the right combination or the right notes and things in there, then they'd fit. It's like a blank spot, and they would just fit right in there, and I'm like, that's it. So I wasn't consciously saying I got to use this, tritones, I got to use parallels, I got to use whatever dissonance. I followed my ears mostly.
Yeah, definitely. And like you can hear it in the whole Heretics soundtrack, because it has, you have the tritone, and you're using this country motion thing that's used a lot in the strings, and this, lots of diminished chords, lots of kind of dark harmony, and it suits the game so well.
Well, that's thank you. that's a compliment, because definitely, but I realized that's what I was going to have to go for. Even a lot of these maps and things for me were not even done. I didn't even get to see what this game was going to look like when I was working on the music.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. So I just knew dark, scary, all that kind of thing. And so once I kind of latched onto the right, from music training, I understood what sort of harmonies and things you're supposed to use to give that feeling.
Sure.
And stay away from major happy chords and things like that.
Yeah.
But so I've got myself into that dark, heavy, listen to the timpani here, and that's all about. And I think some of this comes from like when I mentioned I played saxophone, but I played bass guitar in a band, and I love the bass. I love the low lines, the low strings, the bass guitar. And a lot of songs I'd either begin with these like low drums or the bass or just a low string line. So that was usually the driving force behind a lot of this stuff, and how I get that, at least for me, that dark feeling, the good atmosphere of these things.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
because a lot of the tunes do have a lot of bass, a lot of low, like there's a lot of double bass and fretless bass. In some of the tunes. Actually, you sent me some sheet music yesterday, and you're like, oh, I'm not sure which ones are which, and I was just playing through them. I was like, oh yeah, that's E1 M7, and I was playing it. It's that low fretless. It's kind of using fourths, and it's moving around. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the heart of these songs mostly is what you're talking about there. It's going to be the low end.
Yeah.
Because when I brought in the higher MIDIs and like, oh, let's try some strings and things like that, it's just it's a little too happy.
Yeah,
so didn't want that.
That makes perfect sense.
They're minimally there. But,
yeah, sure. Okay, let's finish the docs.
That end screen is like one of the cool things about this game and Doom and everything. It's like where you got to the end and then you got those percentages, or you found two of 4 secrets or something like that.
That's right.
That's what keeps you coming back. And oh no, what did I miss?
I missed a secret. There must be a secret somewhere. Yeah.
Yep.
It's amazing because this and Doom, they have such a huge modding community. It's massive, like, same with Hexen. The game is still played now, 20 something years later.
Yeah, I'm amazed that, just that we're still doing this right now. And it's so awesome that people just still want to play this.
Yeah.
And then bring it up. I've just been so surprised to have people like send mails to me or something and say, I love this game and I'm still playing it. I'm like, what?
Yeah,
okay, great.
It's mad, isn't it? It's just crazy. But it just shows you it holds up. The gameplay really holds up, and people still enjoy playing it. So.
Right, and I think part of that is just it's the principles of how these games are designed. It's like it can change, the look can change, but the way they're built to play is what makes them fun forever. I mean, I still play Monopoly, and it's still the same board game.
Exactly, that's it. So, how did Heretic come to be? I know we talked a little bit about Black Crypt before.
Part of that I kind of missed. For me, I came in to start my actual work at Raven when Heretic was already kind of underway.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't tell you about the sort of the first meetings or design meetings about what it was going to be or how it was going to be put together. I think a lot of that was already in place. When I came in to work, and we were in just a small downstairs office of an office building, and for me, because I was going to work with music and audio, I kind of was like, well, if possible, could I work in a place kind of separate? And most people were all just kind of together, and
sure.
the only thing for me was like a closet. So my first place to work was about like this long closet, about 4 feet wide by 10 feet long or something like that.
Oh,
yeah. And so my life was sort of come in, shut the door, sit down, and stay by myself and work on music.
Right.
Mostly in the morning time, and then a little later after that was after lunch, go back and work on sound effects. And so a lot of times I wouldn't know what was being done until a little bit later. People like say, hey, check out this new monster, check out this new level that just is getting done. But what was really good and very smart, I think, about as we worked on this game was that we were play testers as well, and quality testers.
Right.
So everybody working on the game played the game, and
yeah, and
it made it fun, but it also kept you really up to date on what was getting done.
Sure. So what kind of music were you listening to get inspiration for the Heretic soundtrack?
Well, let's see. Doom was an important part of that, just because the general idea of I just got crushed. Okay.
Are you trying to get the dragon claw?
Yeah. Just kind of as a principle there, the way the music was working in Doom was awesome, and so it was helpful to me to listen to that. So I played through a lot of that just to do that. And then after that, people would a lot of times ask me that question. What were you listening to get inspired? And honestly, a lot of times I didn't want to listen to anything, because it's like if you listen too much to other things, then you find yourself copying that.
Yeah.
At least for me, that was kind of what I was afraid of. Or I listened to really strange things like pop music on CDs and things that had nothing to do with game music at all, and I would just sort of use little musical motives from some of those songs as ideas to just kind of jumpstart some of my creative ideas. I'm facing a few skeletons on my own here.
Oh, okay. Oh, I just died.
Me too. This game is harder than I remember.
Man. It is not easy.
Oh, it's been a while.
Yeah. What was the sound that you used for the dragon claw, the firing sound? It's this kind of flanged kind of sound that has this, I know it's low flange sound. It's really cool.
It is, thanks. I realize that when I look back at some of these sounds, it's like I can't tell you exactly how I put all that one together. I did write down a lot of things on paper, because when I was building them, a lot of times it happened destructively. So I would layer this on top of this and this and this, and hope something good came out. And then sometimes I had to look back and say, "Oh, I was close, but how did I do that?" So I go back and look at the notes I wrote on paper, kind of put things back together again. So, but I just remember this was a challenge because of how fast it would fire.
Mm-hmm.
So it had to be a sound that Yeah, because sometimes when you played sounds too quickly together, they would just cut each other out a little bit, and some, pretty bad. So.
Okay. Yeah. So like you couldn't use like a very short sampled sound, and it would just cut with it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it was important to work with programmers so that, because I sometimes I would make a sound and I'm like, this sounds perfect, and we put it in, and because of the rate of fire, it would just destroy what was sounded like a good sound by itself. So a lot of the good sound design was just trial and error.
Right. Okay.
You do this and like, well, here's what's happening, here's what's going wrong, so I'm going to need to change some different things to make it work.
Gotcha. Yeah. So when you started with Heretic, did the guys want a specific like style of music, or were you kind of given free rein to kind of do whatever you want to a certain extent?
That's a good question. Think a minute. Honestly, I don't think anybody said anything.
Wow.
I think it was just sort of like, hey, go in there and go start composing some music.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, but my memory is that I just started working on things, got like a few peeks at some of the maps, and what they're going to be like, and then I'd bring a song out and we'd listen to it, and I'd get some feedback and say, what do you think? Is this going to work? People would either like it or hate it, or suggest some changes and things like that.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of us were like that, and that was the fun of working on something so new yet, was like everybody was sort of discovering things on their own, and there was a lot of freedom to like, well, try that, go ahead and just try something.
Oh, that's cool.
See what it'll be. Yeah.
That's really nice. Yeah, it's the same with me with when I'm doing stuff for Squad. The guys are very open to what I do, and I'm kind of able to do my own thing to a certain extent as well, which is really nice.
Well, unless you really know you really have a sure idea of what it is you want it to be like, I think you're better off to just give some general guidelines and then let a person go. Otherwise, they get too kind of like squished, as far as trying to be creative and free, that kind of thing. So
definitely.
Yeah, these songs and these ideas were just me thinking about what I just generally wanted to hear and try, and then thankfully most of them were like good. People didn't say
that's nice.
Don't throw it in the garbage, it's crap. So,
yeah. No, not at all. They're some absolutely great tunes. Like, I was playing this with my brother there about 2 days ago, and he's a bass player. As I was saying to you, and he loves this part of the tune, because it's got a real kind of cool groove. Like, actually, a lot of the tunes have a really nice kind of, obviously because you like the bass, and it definitely comes through,
I think it's hard to remember exactly the moment where I was making it, but yeah, definitely loved starting with bass lines, because that was an instrument I had played for a while, and I liked it. So. Wow, I don't remember everything turning yellow when I used the ring.
Oh yeah, the invulnerability ring.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Oh man.
Oh, we just about did. I've got 3%. Just about. Okay. Cool. Nice.
What's really weird is just playing it now again, and some of those things, like the weapons are like with the lobby balls. It's like I didn't remember that weapon being in there.
Oh really?
Came back all of a sudden. Look, oh yeah. Yeah.
That's funny.
Well, there've been a lot of other games in between, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess that's okay.
Absolutely. So, do you remember what software you used to sequence in all the music?
I do. So when I first started, I remember I showed up and let's see, what did I have? Little 486 SX25 computer and some software program that just was terrible for design. But to begin with, I went over to, actually for the first week about when I was at work, I went to SSI out in San Jose, because they were they were producing and working on Cyclones.
Oh, yeah.
And I just kind of sat down there because I had things to learn about how I was going to do this work, and sat down with those guys there, and we just talked, and I watched them and shadowed them for a while to see what they're doing, and picked up some ideas. So since we were working on PC computers, and I came back and I was like, okay, they were using Pro Tools, I think, but I'm going to use something with PC, and I couldn't search the internet for ideas or anything like that, but I read Electronic Musician. It's a great magazine, and that helped me a lot. So I picked Cubase, because there were only a few professional ones, Cubase, Cakewalk, professional sequencing programs, so that was what I used for doing music design, and I still use that today.
No way.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
Loyal customers.
Well, it's like I could have picked different ones, and I've learned a few kind of over the years, or tried a few different ones, but once you have something you like, there's no reason not to keep using it.
Exactly, yeah.
Especially if it does the job.
Yeah.
Like for sound design, I've been using SoundForge for years.
Oh, okay, cool.
And it actually worked out pretty good, because SoundForge was made by Sonic Foundry, and that company was actually sitting right in Madison, Wisconsin, back in the early days there. Right. And so I just stopped moving. I'm thinking here.
No, that's okay. That's all good.
But
I'm listening. I promise.
But I love the program yet, because it's so kind of organic, intuitive, and nobody does that thing with the big. I don't know. I could just grab and move things really fast in there. And what was kind of interesting is, the Sonic Foundry was nearby, and I seem to remember when I needed another version, like driving over with a copy of Heretic to trade for a new updated version of SoundForge.
Nice.
Got a few unkilled monsters here. That's all.
Oh, right.
What's up, guys?
We can't have any of that.
No, can't leave them wandering around.
Oh, there you are. I'm right behind you.
Oh. Hi.
I love that little tempo change there on that bit, that little section.
Mm-hmm. I feel like that was something else I didn't hear a lot of in other MIDI songs. People would just take advantage of it, like trying to use that tempo change.
Okay. Yeah, when it's done right, it sounds great, you know.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm doing some orchestral stuff, and when you do tempo changes, it's so tricky to get right, because it can either sound really fake or really, really good, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's a good point. I think one of the things, I learned when working with MIDI, as a person who played saxophone or just played more conventional instruments, if you wanted to make changes in those, like volume or pitch or tempo, it's just like, it's simple because you just do it,
Right, yeah.
From your body, that kind of thing. But when it came to MIDI, it was like, okay, now I got to open up this MIDI editor, and oh, look, here's a bunch of weird like numbers and symbols and things like that, and I'm either gonna because I used the MIDI editor to write in most of those things like tempo changes and pitch changes,
sure.
Pitch bends, volume, all that stuff. And once I understood how the thing worked and what was happening with it, actually it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Because it was just a different way to create those same types of expressions.
Exactly.
Musical expressions, which I think was the key to making it not sound like so much like just MIDI.
Yeah. I mean, like what you guys did, yourself and Bobby and all these other, composers from the 90s, you did as much as you could with what you had, with MIDI, and it's like, it still sounds great today, Do you know what? I think we'll finish this level. Let's go to the next level. Yeah. If I don't die, I'm good. I'm right in saying that the sound effects for Heretic, it's all 8-bit, right?
Yes. Yeah, everything back then, let's see, was 11K 8-bit sounds. Okay, so I came in and I'm like, I'm going to make these sound effects. That's cool. And I'd grab these great sounds off the CDs and work with them at 44K. And like, well, this is awesome. Listen to this cool sound I made for this weapon. And then you go, okay, downsample down to 11K 8-bit, and like it just falls apart completely, or just sounds terrible. And I didn't, I just didn't know that was going to happen. So, because I wasn't an audio engineer, I really didn't have that background.
Right. Yeah.
But I knew it was sounding like crap. So then I'd go back sometimes and just, there's 8-bit aliasing that would happen. Sometimes I'd like, where's that weird sound coming from? Yeah. So it was a lot of times I'd just have to go back to the drawing board and completely get rid of a sound idea I had. Other times, take the sound effect back to kind of early parts and figure out which element in it didn't work.
Right.
Because you got the really limited frequency range to work with, and you're putting in a sound in there that doesn't really, it's outside that frequency range.
Sure. Yeah, because you're losing all that lovely high end, and then as well as that, a bit of the low end, so it's very much altering the sound,
Mm-hmm. It was pretty sad at times, because you're like, oh no, I've been working on this sound for like an hour, and now it's not going to work at all.
It doesn't sound right, yeah.
No, it's like, I'm just going to have to completely trash it. It's terrible.
It's such an interesting blend, isn't it? It's like, orchestral and metal, but it works so well with the game.
That's the end of me.
Yeah, I heard you scream from my.
Yeah. I think when I was like making the music, even though a lot of it was trying to be dark and kind of like that, there's certain songs like this one that are a little bit more like I'd say they're more doom-esque kind of thing.
Sure, yeah.
So what's your favorite, chicken or pig?
I can't choose between them. They're both so good. I do love the pig from Hexen though. It's just the snout.
What was really funny was like the idea of like, well, if you get turned into a pig or a chicken though, shouldn't you still be able to attack?
Yeah.
Like, well, yeah, I guess so. That seems fair. So then I'm making this little pecking sound for the chicken when you attack people, or the pig grunting and biting you.
That's right, man. So, do you have a favorite song in either Heretic or Hexen?
I really do like the first song. I called it Dark, but it was the Docks. That's awesome.
Right. Yeah.
I do like. I'm looking at a piece of paper now because as I learned, like I had names for all the songs when I worked on them, and then they got named different things in the map. So
right.
I called it the one I called Merrick, but it was the Citadel.
Okay.
I think just because
that's
when I listened
level,
to
right?
them. Let's see. Yep. Here we go.
Yeah.
And the reason is because you listen to this song, like I said, it was sort of got that doomy feel a little bit to it. But what's nice is all these songs were pretty short, and this one was able to sort of like repeat and play itself different times without like getting really like, oh, I'm listening to the same thing over and over.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a loop. Yeah.
And it kind of it's good action feel. I like the drums and stuff in there.
Yeah.
But I love the timpani, and I love the opening and the whole thing of Docks in there too.
Yeah. So. It's right from the start. You just get this thumping, this beat, this timpani just driving,
And then, like any composer, when you go from one product from one time period to another with the songs for Hexen, I think just I like in a different way. I'm more, you hear yourself kind of like get better at what you're doing.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
The pieces were like twice as long. Same thing then moving on, like if I look back on these types of games and the things I did, the stuff for Heretic II, I think was some of my favorite.
Right, okay.
So
yeah, I loved Heretic II as well, actually. Was it a big decision moving from first person to third person for Heretic II?
Geez, a lot of controversy about that.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it. I actually thought it was cool. I thought it was a good move, but yeah, I'm sure a lot of people are like, what's going on?
Yeah, I think there were always people who didn't like that idea or didn't understand, why do that at all. So I don't remember the exact final like talking or discussions about that.
Right.
How it went, but is it going to be first or third person? But I think it was so well done, and believe it or not, that was the first time I learned that you were this guy named Corvus. I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
I'm like, and that's what I look like all the time on that.
Yeah. Actually,
So-
I don't think you find out what your name is in this game in Heretic.
No, I didn't
Yeah.
think so either. I think a lot of that lore was added a little bit later as the thing kept growing. You're like, well, you should name the person you've been all this time.
Yeah, I think we're actually playing this on the hardest difficulty.
Is that what's going on?
Yeah, I think that's what's going on. That's why.
I'm not helping you much because I don't know where you are right now.
No, it's all good. I'm actually just. I think I might just finish this level when we get to the next level.
Wow. Okay.
We're actually out of ammo as well.
Yeah. That makes it a little harder.
Ah, there we go.
There we go.
Yeah, so talk about favorite tunes. This is my favorite tune. Yeah. Between the two, the left hand and the right hand, It's great.
I love sending voices in different directions like that. At Counterpoint. Most of the songs I think that I make, I build. I don't think I hear that right away. I'll start with one line that's going along, and then just as a general principle, I realize it sounds better when you send something in the opposite direction as opposed to moving always in parallels or in unison through things. So that was kind of just a principle to follow.
Yeah, and it works because like you get all these nice different intervals. You get like 6 and stuff, and yeah, it's really melodic on its own. Like
the classics are the things that work the best. So compose on a piano, and stay with classic orchestral instruments for most of the stuff.
Definitely.
and then grab those really odd or unusual samples for the exceptions, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Because we were just talking about that, like the Heretic, you use only a few instruments per track,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I gave you a few. I showed you some sheets that I printed out with just the different MIDI instruments, and I think I had certain ones crossed off on there, and maybe I circled a few too, where I like, these are my favorites. And then you have your go-to instruments, like you'd have your go-to band.
Definitely.
That's part of I think one of the biggest hurdles in composing is decide, well, who's in the band first.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Especially with a game like Heretic and Hexen, like you've picked a certain sound and it works, You have your guitars, the orchestral stuff.
Right. Then that just becomes the characteristic, of the sound of that game, and everybody. I guess that's how it becomes iconic. I don't think you plan that ahead of time. Like people will say later, "Oh yeah, that sounds like Mario or whatever like that." It's just sort of like you do it, and then later on people say, it becomes connected with it.
Sure. It becomes its own genre.
Yeah.
Right.
I had no idea whether Heretic was going to be a successful game or anything like that, or like at this years later, people are still listening to that and say, oh, I hear it online sometimes. Yeah, that right as soon as I hear it, I think of that game right away and that first level, and they're like, that's a cool feeling to know that something you composed is that connected to the game. So.
Yeah, and it's still relevant. People are still listening to it. And I think the Heretics, like, there's obviously a few videos online, but they've all got like, tens of thousands of views, maybe more. So
that is just amazing to me, and it's like, it's super awesome. It just makes me feel so good when, I didn't even realize people were still listening to or even playing Heretic and Hexen. But when I see that, or somebody says, wow, I love this music and everything, it's just totally makes my day.
That's so cool.
Always.
Man. Yeah, it's nice to get a bit of appreciation. It's just, you know, especially for a game that's this, you know, from the early 90s, it's still, you know, still been played by many people. I remember getting IPX working on playing Heretic with my brothers. It was just such great fun, like, you know, and all the little simple things, like seeing one another in different colors, you know, it's just, it's gas.
I was just gonna say, it's a really fun thing about this whole industry. Just remembering this is like what we started with, like the strength of the computers that we had and that kind of thing. And it's really, I can remember this, that as we worked, it would just drive the industry. It seemed like, you know, because they'd look at our game and whatever, and we'd be like, okay, well that's fine, but now we need a more powerful computer.
Sure.
It's like we were always like upgrading to more powerful Pentium computers and things, and people I would talk to at home or on the street were like, had no idea what I was, you know, like, what, they make that? And
you know? 386.
But I think, you know, people have said that, and I think it's probably true that the gaming industry has driven pushing that technology, because we want to show better and better graphics and have clearer sound and music and all that kind of stuff. And
yeah, definitely.
So
when you were using MIDI, your transition from MIDI to audio must have been like whoa, this is awesome, you know?
Well, again, it's like I loved working within that little creative box of the MIDI stuff, because it made it simple to just not think too much about everything else. I liked having the boundaries. So the first time I was getting outside of that was working on Necrodome.
Right. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I went and got this Kurzweil synth module, and then I was using that, and then like trying to figure out which sounds were going to be the good ones to use from there. Oh God,
right.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I was right in your line of fire.
It was you and him. Yeah. So, but
yeah,
I mean, there's definitely cooler things, I guess, when I listened to Heretic II. Yeah. And some of the stuff that happened in there, then I feel like I don't know, I feel like that I was starting to do a better job of using, you know, non-MIDI type music.
So before the interview, you sent me some sheet music. Do you usually write in sheet music and then transfer it into MIDI?
Well, not always. Yeah, sometimes that worked really well for me. I'd sit down and I'd think like a classic musician and just sort of go, okay, well, maybe start a little piano part, write it out, and look at it. Because having had some instruction in orchestration, composition, things like that, I'd be like, okay, I think I know I can build off of this chords, you know, some melodies, and I know the rules to stay in the key. So I do that sometimes. But when that didn't work, I did some other crazy stuff, like just open Cubase and maybe just pick an instrument and just start playing around with it.
Right.
Or if it got really bad, I would just take like the editor where it lets you draw with a little pencil.
Right. Okay.
And just like, honestly, I would like make shapes on the thing and like, well, wonder what that sounds like, or just like write words with it. I know it's ridiculous, but I can definitely remember sometimes with where you're up against, like everybody is, like writer's block, creative block, and you have no other ideas, and so you just like do anything you can to like get you know, surprise yourself with an idea. So because it could be a hard thing, I think as I learned to do anything creative for hire, because you show up in the morning, sit down in the room, and it's like, if you don't want to like or feel creative or have ideas about what to compose, there's nothing else for you to do today. So
just go home.
Take a
early day.
So I mean, but you have to learn too, I think, that it's okay to just be sitting there for a little while doing nothing and just, you know, thinking and waiting, because I can remember days where I'd sit down for maybe and feel like nothing got done with a couple hours, and then in that last half hour, an hour, the idea hit,
Right.
and suddenly boom, 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 everything fell together that way. So
Gotcha.
yeah, the word is don't give up just because something hasn't come in the first hour, day, or even week.
Yeah.
'Cause you don't really know.
And was that like, was that stressful at times when you're coming in and you have deadlines and that, and you're like, yeah, we need some more tunes or
Yeah.
yeah, I can imagine.
It sure was.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean about when you're creating something. It's different than if you're holding like 4 pieces of a gadget. And you're like, I just got to put this together. Well, I can do that whether I'm in the mood or not. I can just assemble this thing.
Yeah,
but when it came to music, I thought about this a lot. I thought you're just sitting there with music. It's like it's just dead silence, and there's sometimes nothing more intimidating than that. Like for a visual artist to have the blank page or a writer, but
yeah.
For here, you hear nothing and you have no ideas in your head. But I have to have this done in a week. Yeah.
I'm actually surprised we've gotten through. 7 levels. It's pretty awesome.
It is really tricky trying to sit and play
it
through.
is.
I've not even done it in a while, and then chat about some of this stuff. So.
Yeah, it's just getting shown the deep end. Yeah, it's really tricky.
So hopefully I'm making some sense and stuff I'm talking about here, but I love having the chance to go back over this stuff, and it's like I've always felt too. I love it when people have emailed me or send me sent messages to me and ask questions. A lot of people ask stuff like, what's this guy really saying? What are the sorcerers saying? And the disciples. Or how'd you do this music? Why'd you do that? So it's so much fun to talk to people about that.
Yeah.
So I love that.
So like, what would be your best memories of back then making these games?
I think the best memory I have in general is just what it was like to be part of that group, because it's kind of a rare thing. Just before definitely. I changed over, I was teaching music, which is pretty cool and everything. But when this came along, it's like, well, would you like to work on games and try to make music for games? And we're going to do this. I thought I'll never have another chance like this.
Yeah, definitely.
And these are my friends, and I'm like, I'm going to get up in the morning and go in and do this. And so I was like, yeah, this could be fun. Super scary, but fun. And you go in, take a salary cut and all this, and some days you're like, I don't know if this is going to work or not. But what I appreciate now is that the group that was together making this game and Hexen was like just unique, because we're all kind of new, I'd say, at this, and you look for that place to work where you feel like everybody's together with this like common sort of great mission and this great thing that they're just going to accomplish together, and everybody's kind of humble and everybody's super excited about the things we appreciate together. And I think everybody loves the idea that it'd be great to go to work and love what you do every day. And so
that's a rare thing. It
is definitely so. And then to have it come out and turn into games that people said, yeah, these are great, they're gonna sell. I mean, that was just bonus.
Yeah, man. And like, it's like I work with a crowd of guys, and they're amazingly talented. They're and they've got a really, really good passion for what they do, and it's it rubs off me. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
So, do you want to turn me into a chicken? On that note.
Go. Jeez. You serious?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, no!
Oh, man, how do we get through this thing? Right? There you go. Go.
Oh, man, it's the best thing ever.
I think I forgot about this room with all these pods that are...
Yeah, they keep respawning.
Just keep respawning. Love the pods. What a great idea.
That's brilliant.
Oh, here we got the floating heads. Oh, man.
I hear the 2 dudes.
Oh, I forgot about those guys.
Yeah.
Anything that's that big and that's just a giant head is going to be really bad.
Yeah. I'm still a chicken.
You're still a chicken.
Oh, there we go. I'm good. I'm good. I had my time.
I think this is for me.
Oh yeah, they do that whirlwind thing. It's so cool. So the big question, if there was a sequel to Hexen or Heretic, would you do the music and audio again?
If anybody would have me, yeah, I absolutely would.
Of course they would.
You know, well, we made Heretic, we made Hexen, and Hexen 2 and Heretic 2, and it's like everybody who worked on the games that I can recall were always like, let's make more.
Yeah.
But you know, it becomes part of what's selling, what's good in the industry, what people feel confident about, you know, spending the money and time on building again. But I've had a lot of people contact me. It's so awesome.
Oh, wow.
Like, you know, how can we get another one made? How can we do this? And, you know, but I'm also like, I'm not sure who has the rights to things or how you know, do the logistics of that. But
yeah.
But I love the game, and well, you know, it starts to feel like your baby after a while too.
Yeah,
like if somebody else were doing the music, it'd be like, oh, sad.
Yeah, definitely, man, definitely.
Everything you hear was sort of like, well, this is what I think I want it to sound like. The music and the sound effects and things in here, and to me, they're one of a kind. They're original.
Sure.
And you know, it's cool to work on things like in Wolfenstein, try to make weapons that are totally accurate sounding to World War II, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's a thing, but it's a different kind of a challenge.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that, I think, is, you know, as a memory of this, and something I love about this game and this world, and why I would love to do it again, is because it's all brand new. It's like none of this is real. It's just
fantasy.
Yep, fantasy is awesome.
And it's so much fun. I mean, like, I'm a bit of a nerd anyway. I like all kind of fantasy and science fiction stuff, and when it comes to sounds, science fiction kind of sounds, and when it's done right, it's just so cool, like, you know.
Well, you know, there's so many things you can. We're so inundated with different games and movies and stuff on the internet that it's hard to hear something really original. You know, anymore. And when you do, it's just like awesome, especially if you're working a creative business, or you're creative yourself. Like I do like to listen for other games or movies and things, and you hear a sound, and lots of times I'm like, oh, that's right off that old General series, the sound effects that we bought like 20 years ago. I know that sound. I've heard it a million times.
Yeah.
And other times I'm like, you hear something, I'm like, I had no idea how that sound was done, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's funny.
I want to work on it some more.
Yeah. It's like when you know, when you have a sample library sound, and then you hear it in like a TV show, you're like, oh man, that's my sound.
Yep.
You know, it's like, don't use that. Don't use that. It's mine. Yeah, it's so funny. So, is there anything that you're working on now?
Well, let's see. Right now, I've been really kind of doing some things just independently. I have a private, like, LLC, music and audio by Kevin Schilder, just cool. That to do more music or our sound design stuff. You know, yeah. Unfortunately, I was caught up in that one of the layoffs at Raven some years ago, and just for my own reasons, didn't really go charging out to find another company to try and be with. So what I do now is kind of whatever comes up and is available, and kind of mostly just kind of smaller projects. I'm actually doing some things to provide a lot of time voiceover work and some sound effect stuff for a company right here in Wisconsin that does virtual reality projects.
Nice.
Things for commercial stuff. It's really cool. But other than that, hey, I'm open for other projects and things like that.
Sweet.
So you know, you never know. It's been nice to take a little bit of a break and get a little breather from all the intense work of, you know, producing big games and stuff like this. But
I mean, like, you have a huge list of credits, like, you know, Star Trek Elite Force games, Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy, you know, all the Hexen Heretic games.
I guess I didn't know how big it was till I looked at it later.
Yeah.
I thought, oh, that's why I'm so worn out. The toughest year I think was, I remember I think it was 97, and I was doing Take No Prisoners, Mage Slayer, and Hexen 2, and was also creative director on Take No Prisoners all at the same time in that year, and I was trying to run a marathon, so training for a marathon. Yeah, and I was the only audio person, so I do remember that's when we finally said, hey, we should maybe hire one more person. So.
Yeah, I think so, man. That's insane.
So
Jeez.
yeah, but it was fun. I love the work that we were doing, so it always made it worth it.
Yeah.
So you want me to click on this blue?
Oh yeah, go for it, man.
Thing?
Yeah.
Stand right into it. Oh, that was the end.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, we got you the first episode. That's pretty awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a great game, and it just every time I play it, I have fun. It doesn't ever get boring for me. There you are.
What a huge team, right, to make a game?
Yeah. Well, can you imagine? It's like, what, 15 people, is it? Not even? Probably 10?
I don't know. What would that be now?
200?
Yeah. I don't know. To me, I always look back and remember, it doesn't have to be super complex. It doesn't have to cost a ton of money to be super fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just whatever. A great idea is a great idea.
Yeah. And that's, those other indie games now are popping up, and they're making these small little games, and they're really fun. Really fun,
I love that, because it makes me think of this group here, and just the people who just have the freedom to explore their idea on a lower budget, and just without, it's just them doing what they're going to do, and a lot of little games, and I think you're going to maybe see some, more cool, innovative things like this coming out.
Yeah. Especially with VR as well, and all this new technology. It's brilliant.
I love this, that you asked me to do this, and to have the chance to go back and relive some of these maps, because it has been a while since I played through these things.
Yeah.
And also just love having the chance to talk to people who are interested in, well, first the music and stuff that I have done in it. Because that's just flattering, and just nice to know that somebody caught that part of it as well. But it was also a little joke, kind of as we would go through the games and work on things, that the audio would always just sort of be a secondhand thing, oh yeah, the audio, because we go through a meeting and go around the table, check with everybody, and well, we're done, right? Well, hello.
Oh yeah, you skipped me.
Yeah.
For me, it's a nostalgic thing. Although, I grew up in this era of games, but the thing that always stuck out for me was the music and the sounds and stuff, as well as the visual stuff. But definitely the musical stuff. It's just, it really just, it's inspired me to be a composer. And and I'm doing this series just to show people what you guys did back then, and just to get a better understanding of it, because there's no real videos out there with composers talking about their music and what was in their heads when they were writing and what they were doing, and I think it's cool.
I think it's an awesome idea, and I think I just didn't. You don't see it at the time you're doing something, but when you do look back 20 years later or so, and you say, "Oh, that was unique," and it was maybe a predecessor to something that's there now, and people do have an interest in saying, "Where did this come from? How was it done originally? Could we?" And history isn't always done with. So to go back and listen to either music or some of these games, and look at them and say, "Hey, maybe there's something we can still learn from, or redo, or create a new version of that kind of thing."
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing.
I think so. I definitely think so.
So it's flattering. It's awesome to be able to. I agree with you, and I listened to this because it was years before I re-listened to some of these songs, and the memories come right back. And that's true of other games I've played from other people, and the music does connect you to it right away, or sounds and things like that. So that's why it's been a privilege and a fun for me to be able to do that in this industry, and make games and be that part of it.
Thanks for watching. and a special thanks to Kevin Schilder for doing this playthrough. If you want to see more from Kevin, please leave your comment below and don't forget to like and subscribe.